Hello, I am Angie Gallagher, and I am a functional medicine wellness coach. And I'm going to talk to you today about knowing your body type and how knowing your body type can help you prevent a lot of frustration, time, and effort in doing things that are not working for your body type, for your health and wellness goals. So I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started here. All right. So knowing your body type, this is so important because without knowing your body type, you can be wasting a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of effort, and oftentimes you'll give up because you'll be doing things that, though they might be the right things for somebody else, they may not be the right thing for you. In fact, they may be counterproductive, and not even just not getting you to your goal, but making things worse for you for where you're at with your body and with your metabolic and hormonal health. So I just am really passionate about helping people really achieve their ideal health and well-being. And I've learned so much in my 25 years of working clinically in cardiac and pulmonary rehab, and then my years working as a wellness coach, and then the last 5 years working in the functional medicine space, and really understanding the root cause for a lot of these chronic conditions that are oftentimes just, treated with medications, but not really going to the root cause of what's going on. And so that's what my mission is now, is to help people really understand what's going on below the under the hood, so to speak. So we're going to talk about, when we go back to these body types, we're going to talk about the first three. I don't have time to really get into specifically into men and their hormonal issues. However, I will say that there is a lot of parallel, and many of the things that I will be recommending for these first three body types, many of them will also be beneficial for that fourth body type. So the first body type we're going to talk about is the adrenal. So the adrenal body type, this is important to understand because we see so many people having this body type due to years and years of stress and not managing stress well. So your adrenal glands, they are little triangle-shaped glands that sit right on top of your kidneys. So these are critical in the HPA axis, so the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. So this is kind of the main frame, so to speak, in our body. It really is sort of the center of kind of where our hormonal signaling is coming from. It speaks a lot to our nervous system. So really important that our HPA axis is balanced and that it's not, constantly being activated or triggered. What happens though is when the HPA axis is activated because of stress, it tells the adrenal gland to kick out cortisol. So the adrenal gland is going to be really good at kicking out cortisol in situations of acute stress where maybe we are dealing with some sort of physical threat. Maybe we're trying to avoid a car accident and we need that quick action. We need to be able to take quick action, be quickly decisive. This is where these short bursts of cortisol come in handy, or say for performance, and we're going out for an athletic performance or something where we need to be really in high gear. But what happens is over time, when we have too much of this cortisol being kicked out on a day-to-day basis because we're not handling the stress in our life well, is we can end up with just this overabundance of cortisol circulating through our body all the time. And there are certain places in the body that have more cortisol receptors, and one of those is the low belly. And so you'll see a lot of people, when they're dealing with a lot of stress in their life, putting on that belly fat, really, that energy, those energy stores are really going toward the belly. The other symptoms you're going to see in this body type are going to be fatigue, trouble sleeping or insomnia, red cheeks. Most people are going to say that they're dealing with some kind of anxiety or feelings of stress. They'll sometimes have weak or brittle bones. You might see your face becoming more rounded, kind of moon-shaped. That abdomen can grow to the point where it starts to become a little pendulous or kind of hanging down over the pants. Poor skin or acne, people will often have cravings for salt, sometimes, fried salty food, cheese, chocolate, or sugar, especially later in the day. They'll often need coffee to wake up and feel alert. Often will have dark circles under their eyes, inflammation in the joints, pain in the back, neck. People will often, you'll see heel spurs, fibromyalgia, pitting edema, which means you're retaining fluid in your extremities. So often this will be in the ankles or the lower calf. And that means the pitting means if you push your finger in on that and you see a dent, and that dent stays there for a few seconds. So you might see pitting edema 1+ or 2+ pitting edema. That means it's for 2 seconds, that indentation is staying there before it pops back out. So that's an indication that you've got a lot of fluid that is your body is hanging on to, and that's going to tax your circulatory system over time. People will often report feeling out of breath when they climb a flight of stairs. We'll see overactive immune systems where people are developing more food sensitivities, chemical sensitivities, more allergies. Autoimmune conditions can pop up, so thyroid conditions, rheumatoid arthritis, lupus, other things, autoimmune related. Moodiness and irritability, of course, because of everything that's going on, brain fog and poor concentration. And then some people will start to also develop some fat deposits in the upper back or lower neck area. And we sometimes refer to that as a buffalo hump. Again, there's some cortisol receptors there. So you might, be looking at this, this picture and be like, okay, yeah, that's totally my body type. Like I definitely see where like all of a sudden, like my belly just started really growing, getting bigger. And you can check off at least 5 of those symptoms. And maybe the body type physically isn't necessarily yours, but you definitely identify with a lot of the things on this list. That's important to know because this is really going to impact your specific efforts to heal your body. So you want to be saying, okay, if I'm dealing with all these issues because of high cortisol, what are the things that are going to help me reduce my cortisol? And what are the things that could actually aggravate? So we really want to be paying attention to how it's so important to really be body aware and really aware of what is going on for you. So, what's happening with your energy levels? Are you noticing that you can sometimes feel jittery or like wide awake when you should be feeling sleepy? Like, are you feeling like when you try to go to bed, all of a sudden you get this like second wind and you're like wide awake? Are you feeling like it's really hard to wake up in the morning? Are you feeling like you have kind of unstable or unpredictable energy levels? So really important to be aware. So this is what a normal graph looks like in terms of your cortisol. So what we want to see is the adrenals are starting to kick out cortisol early in the morning, around 6 in the morning. And that cortisol level is going to continue to rise until about 9. And then it's going to just kind of gradually fall over the course of the day. It's going to be a little bit plateaued in the evening, but then it's going to hit its lowest at around 10 or so at night. And then it's going to stay nice and low all night. And then gradually start to rise at around 3, with it getting up to its highest levels again back in the 8 o'clock sort of range. That's what we want to see. That would be normal adrenal function. And then the melatonin levels are going to just be opposite of that. So this is an indication of great circadian rhythm. So this person is getting a nice drop in melatonin at around 6 a.m. when they're supposed to be waking. So you have the waking hormone kicking up and you have the sleeping hormone dropping down. And then it levels out during the day, and then it starts to rise again in the evening and get you ready for sleep. So this would be a very picture perfect circadian rhythm. What happens when we have adrenal issues is the adrenals are going to just be off. We're going to be seeing sometimes even the opposite of what we want to see. So this would be a normal graph with the normal rise and fall of cortisol associated with the rise and fall of the sun. Down here, we see the outline of the normal graph, but then we see what happens with adrenal dysfunction. So in the adrenal body type, we're going to sometimes see the cortisol level is rising at night, which is going to be really make it really difficult for you to get sound, deep sleep. And then it's going to start falling in the morning, and it's going to be low during the day. So you're going to have no energy. You're going to be looking for caffeine. You're going to be looking for sugar. You're going to be looking for, just snacking all day just to keep you awake and alert. And then it's going to be time for bed, and you're going to have that kind of wired and tired where you can't sleep, or you're going to be waking up between 2 and 4 in the morning and not able to sleep because your cortisol is spiking. So really aware that you're paying attention to these patterns so that you can really have some awareness of whether this body type is what is going on for you. So if we can, so this last picture, so falling asleep during the workday and then awake at night, wanting to be able to sleep but wide awake. This should be a dark room, obviously, but I couldn't find the picture that I wanted there. So chronic stress also prevents healing. So when we've got chronically high cortisol levels, when we're in that chronic fight or flight state, our body can't heal. The body really needs to be in the fight or flight side of the nervous system for any healing to take place. So if you've been battling chronic issues for years, it could be that you are in this sort of fight or flight state and not even really aware because it's so normal for you. So many people, I think, live in that state of being, at some degree of kind of always stressed, but they don't associate it or call it stress because it's so normal for them. In fact, to not feel that way feels so foreign that it almost feels uncomfortable to not be stressed. So we really need to be paying attention to what it is that we're feeling and what's going on for us. So as a heart math practitioner, I use this graph to help me understand where people are at and where they want to get to, and to help explain how we can affect our nervous system and how we can move ourselves from that state of fight or flight with those high cortisol levels to the rest and digest side where we can have higher levels of DHEA. So we are generally running on stress hormones, or we're running on sex hormones. We want to be running on sex hormones. That's how our bodies were designed to function. But when we are experiencing constant states of stress, our HPA axis is activated and it's sending signals to the adrenal gland to kick out cortisol. So when we're in that state chronically, we're going to be over here on this side of the graph. So if we are at a heightened state of arousal in our nervous system, if we're on the stress side of this, if we have chronic cortisol, then that's going to be experienced as anxiety, maybe anger, frustration. If we are in a low state of arousal, then we may, or if our adrenal glands have been working so hard for so long that now they're kind of getting tired, and they're like, yeah, we've been kicking out all this cortisol, we've been working really hard, and like, we're kind of done, like we need a break. And so then the adrenals start to pump out less cortisol. So then you can actually end up at a state where you're not making enough cortisol around the clock, you're just not making enough. And so that can be experienced as sadness, apathy, depression, resentment. So where we really want to get to with some practicing some stress management techniques, and that's part of what I teach in my program, as well as a heart math practitioner, is I teach breathing techniques and thought retraining to help us shift in our nervous system, deactivate that HPA axis, and get us to where we can be producing higher levels of DHEA, which is a precursor sex hormone, which allows our body to then create more balanced sex hormones in our body. Okay, so with the adrenal body type, what are some things that need to be considered? So with the adrenal body type, you're very likely running on stress hormones. You're in that fight or flight state versus the rest and digest state. So your circadian rhythm is likely disrupted. You're likely having your cortisol levels are rising and falling at the wrong time, and likely your melatonin levels are also going to be off because they're also going to be affected by what happens with your cortisol and what happens during your day. And so you're going to experience unstable and unpredictable energy. So the question to ask in this body type every time is, are you doing too much? Because if you are pushing yourself, if you are in the adrenal body type metabolic state and you're pushing too much, you're working too hard, you're like, well, if I just work a little harder at the gym, if I just go one more day, if I just do 20 more minutes, you could actually be stressing yourself out so much that your body is just hanging on to that extra weight. When we have high cortisol because we're stressing ourselves out, then the opposite of what we want is going to happen. So for exercise and lifestyle considerations, you need to be exercising at lower intensities. You need to be exercising earlier in the day so that you don't spike your cortisol too close to bedtime. And you should also be probably reducing your duration. So maybe, do 10 or 15-minute walk in the morning, maybe get out for a 10 or 15-minute walk during your lunch hour. You want to really be careful with caffeine because that's just really going to continue to throw off your circadian rhythm. Alcohol and nicotine are also really not advised. Practicing slow, deep, I realized there's a typo there, slow, deep, slow breath practices. So really trying to extend your inhale and your exhale. That can be really calming and that can actually shift you in the nervous system into that rest and digest state. I actually incorporate a lot of breath work in my program when I work with people. You want to avoid bright lights at night so that you can get those melatonin levels up to help you sleep better. Sticking to a regular sleep schedule and getting to bed earlier, that can really make a difference. Practicing good sleep hygiene. Taking naps can also be helpful with this body type, just because there's just oftentimes such levels of fatigue, and then finding ways to laugh. Laughter is really, it is one of the best medicines. It really immediately does shift you in your nervous system. And then diet wise, really looking at an anti-inflammatory diet. And this is something that is like kind of a keystone in the program that I run, focusing on unprocessed whole foods. So really looking at trying to get lots of plant-based, fresh fruits and vegetables, wide variety, complex whole grains, and ideally non-gluten. Gluten is, in my experience with functional medicine, I have seen way too many people have health improvements by going off gluten, at least gluten grown in this country. So I really encourage you to try going gluten-free. Gluten does have an inflammatory effect on the body. Again, wide variety is really helpful. Wide variety of plant foods, so vegetables, fruits, herbs. That's going to be helpful for helping heal your microbiome. And then legumes, lentils, beans, peas, healthy fats. So healthy fats from nuts, from seeds, from avocados, from olives. In this population, in this body type, we really want to avoid fasting. Fasting can have a ton of health benefits for you later on once you have lowered your cortisol levels and gotten more stable, gotten like more stability in that cortisol adrenal function. But if you try to fast when your cortisol levels are already high, that's going to aggravate that even more. So we really want to avoid fasting with this body type. And then pre and probiotics, again, these are prebiotics are the foods that feed your bacteria. This is like garlic and onions and bamboo shoots and I think artichokes and I can't think of everything. Water chestnuts. You can just Google prebiotics, and then probiotics, of course, are the fermented foods or taking a probiotic capsule. We really want to take care of our microbiome. That's really going to be key to healing any chronic condition, as we really need a healthy microbiome and making sure that you're staying hydrated. So the second body type we're going to talk about is the ovarian body type, sometimes referred to as the estrogen. But it's important to recognize that it's not just an estrogen issue. Our hormones are very, very, very complex, and estrogen does not act in isolation. So this body type is going to have that pear shape. And I want to really emphasize here that there's nothing wrong with a pear shape. This is how women are supposed to look. We are supposed to have wider hips, and we're supposed to carry some fat in our butt and in our hips and in our thighs. That is a normal thing. So we're not to be feeling like there's something wrong with us if we're pear-shaped. That's good. However, if you're noticing that you're starting to gain a lot more weight in those areas and it's becoming very disproportionate to your overall build, then you might want to be considering, whether you have some of these other symptoms and whether you may be dealing with some hormonal imbalances. So when you're starting to see this extra fat in the hips, thighs, and buttocks, if you've had a history of pretty severe PMS, ovarian cysts, so polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, very common with this body type. And then having a lot of symptoms that are in cycle with your period. So having fatigue, brain fog, having pain in the knees or lower back, having lack of libido, and having these things sort of be in, cycling with your overall menstrual cycle, having hot flashes and night sweats, vaginal dryness, and then again with the cycling. So noticing certain times of the month you have pretty severe acne or pretty severe mood swings, having constipation that's also cyclic, or cyclic thinning of the hair, noticing that sometimes you're seeing more hair coming out when you're washing your hair or brushing, and then other times it's not as bad. So that could be an indication of having this ovarian body type, where you're just your hormones are just not well regulated. So it can be an issue of being estrogen dominant, but it's more than just estrogen. So the ovaries are critical for producing estrogen, but also testosterone and progesterone. So all of these symptoms here are related to imbalances overall in the whole big picture. So what we want to know is, are we dealing with these symptoms, and have we been dealing with these symptoms for a while, to where it seems like something is just off. It's because wherever you're at in whether you're menstruating, whether you're premenopausal, menopausal, the symptoms don't have to be as bad as people experience. I tell people a typical American diet or a typical American lifestyle is going to lead to a typical American menstruation or typical American menopause. So you see a lot of people, even a lot of doctors will say, well, this is just part of what it means to be a woman. You're just going to have PMS. You're just going to have hot flashes. You're just going to have night sweats. You're just going to have low libido. That's just what happens. No, no, do not accept that. That is what happens in 80 or 90% of people. Does it have to be what happens? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I'm 52. I feel better than I ever have in my entire life. I have maybe had hot flashes less than 5 times. I had night sweats when I was first going off of got my IUD out, because I had my IUD taken out and no one told me that it would send me into a hormonal tailspin for a year. So I had a lot of issues balancing my hormones just getting my IUD out. But once that was done, I have been fine. I have had like literally no symptoms of menopause other than no period. So I think it's important to recognize that our lifestyle has a huge effect on what happens with us hormonally. So we really want to be looking at, what are the things that I can do to help me have more balance in my hormones? And I will say, I am not a hormone expert. I don't test hormones. I don't read hormone panels. But what I do know is that when we put the lifestyle practices into place that I teach in my program, most of these symptoms people experience go away. So what is it that I'm doing? Well, one thing that is really important to consider is our insulin levels. So when we've got issues going on hormonally, especially when we have these issues with estrogen dominance. So when we're not metabolizing our estrogen well, we have estrogen dominance, we can end up having weight gain in the hips, thighs, and butt, as we talked about. Insulin also causes us, when we have excess levels of insulin, it's an indication that we're also becoming insulin resistant. So insulin resistance tends to go along with this estrogen dominance. And what happens is the body is no longer as sensitive to the insulin. So it's taking more and more insulin to be secreted from your pancreas to get the blood glucose out of the blood and into the cells. So what happens when we have insulin resistance and we've got more insulin circulating? Well, high levels of insulin are not good. It leads to weight gain, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, mood changes, aging, accelerated aging and cancer, hormone imbalances, reduced libido, and aches and pains. So we really want to be considering, what can I do that will help me increase my insulin sensitivity? So with this body type, we really want to be looking at how we can improve our insulin sensitivity and balance our hormones. And so here are some things. So because your sex hormone balance is off, right? And so we really want to do what we can to help level those things out and increase our insulin sensitivity. So things that we can do exercise and lifestyle wise are high intensity interval training a couple days a week. You can find lots of videos online for this, and it's really easy to find ones that work for you. You can go on to YouTube and type in beginner HIIT exercise, no equipment, or beginner HIIT exercise with dumbbells, or beginner HIIT exercise 10 minutes. You can really specify exactly what you're looking for, and there's a ton of options. And then 30 minutes of cardio exercise 4 to 6 days per week. This does not have to be anything fancy. It can just be going out for a 30-minute walk. It can be getting on a stationary bike for 30 minutes. It can be going to a Zumba class, whatever you enjoy, however you like moving your body. I really encourage outdoor exposure, because when we get outside and we get exposed to natural light, that actually has an effect on our hormonal regulation. We also want to be doing strength training. When we have strong muscles, we have more insulin sensitivity, and we want to avoid endocrine disruptors. So really trying to avoid storing our food in plastic, drinking out of plastic bottles. Absolutely do not heat your food up in plastic containers in the microwave. These are all ways that we can help reduce those endocrine disruptors. And then dietary considerations, back again to the huge variety of fruits and veggies. That's going to help get you a wide variety of micronutrients, of vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and polyphenols and all those wonderful things that we need. Focus on cruciferous. So when we get those cruciferous veggies, that's going to help us with that estrogen metabolism. We want those pre and probiotics for our gut. We want to, this is a group that does well with intermittent fasting. So trying to increase the window of time that you don't eat by pushing out breakfast as long as you can. Maybe in some cases you even skip breakfast and just wait until lunch. Lean, healthy proteins, limiting soy products in this group until you are more hormone balanced. Healthy fats from food rather than oils. So really trying to use more whole foods and not using a lot of like oils and sauces and creams and things like that, because we're really trying to get the body to burn the stored energy, the stored fat. And then limiting our carbs, especially a lot of grain, that can be helpful. So our third body type is the thyroid body type. So this is going to be the body type where you're noticing sort of unexplained, sort of sudden weight gain that's just kind of all over. Like you start noticing everything's getting thicker. You're getting thicker in the chest and in the belly and in the hips and the thighs and the arms. It's just kind of all over. You're going to have and this weight gain is, again, it really needs to be where you can't explain it. So it's not like you just went on a trip for a month and just, ate a bunch of, fatty food for a month. This is like, you haven't changed anything. Your diet's the same, your exercise is the same, but you're just starting to see this weight gain. You may feel cold intolerance. Fatigue is definitely a big one here. Brittle nails with vertical ridges in the nails. Your hair becoming really dry and stiff and brittle. Puffy around the eyes, puffiness, short-term memory issues and lack of focus, brain fog, basically, dry skin, cravings for bread, pasta, sweets, so those simple carbs, high cholesterol, a loss of libido, dry, cracked heels, low levels of motivation. Constipation is really common in this group. Thinning outer eyebrows, like the outer third of your eyebrow becoming very thin. Hoarseness in your voice, because as your thyroid is having to work harder and harder to kick out extra thyroid hormone, it becomes enlarged. So you might notice effects on your vocal cords. You might have trouble swallowing. Having morning headaches that get better as the day goes on, and then having a hard time starting or completing tasks. So kind of back to that low level of motivation. So in this case, it's not that the thyroid is essentially has a disease or a condition. It could be that the thyroid is just responding to issues at the adrenal level, issues at the hormone level. So when we fix all those other things, sometimes we will also see that these symptoms of the thyroid body type actually will go away, because the thyroid is really dealing with a lot. So the thyroid is just really responding to a lot of what's happening everywhere else in the body. You can also develop a thyroid condition that's called Hashimoto's. That's an autoimmune condition where your body is attacking its own tissue, and that's happening specifically at the thyroid level. And this is something that can also be put into remission with lifestyle. So there's a lot we can do to really improve thyroid health and improve thyroid function. So that is the absolute good news here. But we do need to be aware of what's going on. And that's why I'm doing this presentation, is I think a lot of people just, they like, I know my body's not doing what I want it to do. I know that like all this weird stuff is happening and all these like issues with weight gain, and I just feel like crap and I don't have any sex drive, but I don't know why. So that's why I'm doing this, because there's always a reason why something's going on. Our bodies are really designed to function optimally late into our life. And so why not have that optimal functioning? So if you feel like you've got a bunch of these symptoms, and you're noticing a lot of this similar, weight gain and some of these symptoms, important to recognize that thyroid could be a part of it. The other thing we also want to be aware of is the other hormones that can be contributing here. So having a thyroid issue is also going to affect your sleep. And if you are not getting good sleep, and this is true for all the body types, so pay attention regardless of which body type you're really identifying with. If you are not getting good, sufficient sleep, you're going to have issues with your ghrelin and your leptin hunger hormones. So when we get plenty of sleep, when we prioritize sleep, we're going to, during the day, we're going to have lower ghrelin levels. Ghrelin is the hormone that tells you when you're hungry and when you're not. So if you have high levels of ghrelin, that makes you hungry. It says it's time to eat. We need to eat. We need fuel. If you have low ghrelin, you're going to have a normal appetite. You're not going to feel starving all day. But when you don't sleep well, your ghrelin levels go up. So when you sleep well, you have higher leptin. So leptin is the hormone that tells you, that signals satiation after eating. So it's like, okay, yep, we're full. We've had a nice big plate of food and we're full. We're ready to go about the day. If you are not sleeping well, your leptin levels will be lower and you're not going to feel satisfied after meals. You're going to finish your plate and you're going to be looking around and, trying to figure out what you're going to have next, or you're going to be back in the kitchen snacking a half hour later. So if you're dealing with these symptoms, I think it's important that you recognize that this is not a willpower issue. This is not you being weak or you being, just an overeater, having, no discipline. If you're not sleeping well, it is very difficult to not have issues around food because of these hormones. So we really need to give ourselves a little grace here, and then also recognize something could be off. So this could be an issue where I, need to look at what is going on in my body, why I'm feeling like this constant state of hunger. So with the thyroid body type considerations, because of the fatigue that's often associated with the thyroid body type, we want to exercise in small bouts. We want to, maybe do 3 10-minute walks per day, something that's doesn't feel so daunting. Strength and flexibility exercises a few days a week is another great way to kind of keep your body moving, but without it having to be like this big, huge effort. You can find lots of strength and flexibility videos on YouTube, beginner level. Again, getting outside, I think natural light is really helpful. It really does energize us. And then in many cases, people are deficient in certain vitamins and minerals. So magnesium is kind of an across the board, like everyone really should be on magnesium. We're really not getting enough in our food for how much magnesium is used in our body. Oftentimes people are deficient in vitamin D, B6, zinc, selenium, and iodine in this body type. However, absolutely, you must talk to your doctor before you start taking any supplements. Dietary considerations, again, back to the varied fruits and veggies, organic, whenever possible. Intermittent fasting can be helpful in this group. So just, widening out that fasting window, pushing off breakfast. Lean proteins, and especially fish and shellfish, but also eggs, turkey, and chicken. You want to limit carbs, especially your grains, and especially gluten, really important for this body type. Getting plenty of protein. An autoimmune protocol diet is a very kind of specific elimination diet, and it can be a little tricky for people to do, and that's something that I help people with in my program. But limiting nightshades, legumes, and grains is a big part of that. And then you want to cook your cruciferous. So cruciferous veggies, if eaten in excess, especially eaten raw, can have goitrous. There's compounds that can increase your risk of goiter. And then you may want to limit dairy also in this group. So that kind of gives you an idea of those first 3 body types. And you may, after listening to this, feel like I have symptoms in all of those. Like you might feel like one body type looks more like yours, but you're like, yeah, I kind of feel like a lot of those. And there's a lot of overlap there. You're not just like, they're not just in these like in isolation. So hormones affect everything, and your nervous system affects everything. So there's a lot of this overlap and interplay, and you may have symptoms in all areas. So if you feel like, wow, I don't even like, which one am I? There's ways that you can dive a little bit deeper, and that's one thing that I'm here to help with. So I have this digital form questionnaire, and I invite you to take this questionnaire, and it gives me, it will provide a very comprehensive review of what systems in your body are sort of the higher priorities for treating, so that everything else can get better. So if you do this questionnaire, and again, it's a digital online questionnaire, and I will give you a link, what we get is we get a graph. And hopefully your graph doesn't look as bad as this, but even if it did, like there's things we can do. That's the good news. So this is telling me that this person has issues at the small intestinal level, so probably some bacterial overgrowth. They're not metabolizing fatty acids well. Their blood sugars spiking throughout the day. They've got issues with absorbing or getting vitamins. Their adrenals are working too hard or tapped out. They've got levels at the pituitary gland, so their HPA axis is definitely off, and then immune issues. So a lot of things that we there's a lot of things we can do here to help this person improve and feel better, and that is absolutely the good news in all of this. So I normally offer a root cause assessment that comes with a 1-hour consult for $150, but I'm inviting you to take this questionnaire, take this root cause assessment, and I will give you the graph, so the report, and we'll spend about 20 minutes chatting about things that you might be able to do, or some initial first steps that you could take. And this is absolutely free with the coupon code root cause. So if you scan this, or you go to that site and set up the appointment. So you'll set up the appointment. It's right now it's set up for an hour, but if you're doing it with the coupon code, and we're doing it for free, it'll be about a 20-minute visit. And you'll get some great information about what's going on. So at least you can be like, okay, so I know what my high priority areas are. And really, like, knowledge is power. Like, that's what I ultimately want, is for people to at least know what's going on, so that they can know the appropriate next steps to take. So I invite you to take that questionnaire, make the appointment, and we can go from there. And if you decide that you would like to work with me, then we can talk about the different options that I have. I highly recommend my group program. It comes with a lifetime membership in my community, so that you are never, kicked out to go it alone. You're a part of this wonderful community for life. So I think it's a wonderful program, and I've helped people really reverse and eliminate a lot of chronic issues that they've had. So it's pretty exciting. But regardless, taking this assessment is certainly going to add value and help you with having just more knowledge and awareness of what's going on with you. So I hope that this has been helpful. I hope you've gotten a few little kernels, a little bit of wisdom to put into place right away, that hopefully will add value into your life as well. So thank you so much for joining me. Bye-bye.